Welcome to Conversations with Asha and Steve, where communication matters. Join us as we discuss effective ways to communicate, bridge the gaps, and build long-lasting relationships within your business and life. Here are your hosts, Asha Prasad and Steve Harper.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve. I am Steve Harper. With me, as always, is my amazing co-host, Dr. Asha Prasad. Asha, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steve. How's it going?
It is going good. We took, both you and I had quite a bit of travel over the last, I'd say 30 days. And so we've kind of taken a little bit of time away from the show and came back refreshed and excited about starting a new series that we think really could add some value to, especially those entrepreneurs and business leaders that are out there. So, but before we dive in, how was your trip? Are you back on your normal sleep schedule yet? Or are you still dealing with a little bit of jet lag?
I don't even know what my normal sleep schedule is at this time. So no, I'm not back on it. And you know what? We had a lot of celebrations because this is the time of year of Diwali for the Indian culture, which is a celebration of light and illumination in the darkness. And it's just a big party for like 5 days.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun, but it does not help jet lag and it does not help getting a regular schedule. So I'm suffering from that now, but it was well worth it.
So you're really hungover from all the partying is what you're really saying.
I hate to say it, but yes. Too much celebration. There's just so much to celebrate. You got to bring the light in the darkness, right? You have to be there.
So I'm other than what you've told me before, but maybe for those listeners that aren't familiar with Diwali, can you explain a little bit about it? Is it always that sort of same theme? How often does it happen? What would the average person need to know about it?
It's once a year, and it's just like, if you want to think about it, you can think of it as twofold. You can kind of think of it as similar to Christmas or to New Year's, like that bringing that light in the darkness, because this is the darkness of the time of year that we're going into. So it's in relationship, like every year it's not on the same date because it goes in correlation with the cycle of the moon.
Oh.
And it's all about new beginnings, about prosperity, about happiness, about joy. And really, so we literally light up everything. You may have seen some pictures that I posted of like candles lit everywhere and all that stuff. It's all about bringing that light and sharing with people. It's just a big uplifting celebration. And that's why I kind of correlate it with Christmas, because we're all about, bringing that light, finding that light within and reconnecting with our faith. And it's very similar to that. And it's kind of just this new beginning of this new season. So
that's great.
Yeah. So
well, and you got to spend it with your dad too, right? Which was really fantastic. So that's
and
awesome.
Also a lot of extended family that I haven't seen in a decade or more, which was really, oh my God, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, we just had, so much fun catching up, but also just falling into that kind of family, banter that you do. And I have some really crazy uncles and aunts as well. It was just unleashed. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Really so I fully expect that you've enlightened them to the show. And so we're going to pick up some new listeners because of your efforts there.
Yes. I enlightened them to a lot of things. They're just like, really? I did not know that. I'm like, how do you not know that? Like, pay attention.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a woman about town. So you're like constantly doing all sorts of things. It's hard to keep up. I feel like I have to have a dance card every time that we get together because I'm like, okay, what'd you do? Which is a good thing. That's a positive thing. Like, like a good entrepreneur should be doing, right? You do a lot of things. You have your hands in a lot of different ventures and opportunities, which is fantastic. So.
Yeah, no, it is fun. And that's why, you know what, I think, Steve, like what the series that we're talking about, and I love the title. You came up with the title and I love it because it's so appropriate because it's, we're talking about the banana peels of entrepreneurship.
Voila!
And if you think about that, like, whoa, there's a banana peel.
Hey, we're getting more comfortable with our graphics. I mean, we have upgraded our show quality in a huge way. But that's it. It doesn't move, doesn't do anything. I can poke it around the screen, but that would probably be a better approach for it right there. But anyway.
No, but you think about it like, and I've been thinking a lot about this, especially whenever I have time off and when I travel, that is my time. You probably have the same thing, Steve.
Yeah.
It's like the time, I don't know, the creative mind just opens up and you start thinking about things and reflecting upon things. And there's so many things that as entrepreneurs that we have to deal with that are coming at us at all times. And there are certain things that we can prepare for and, kind of watch out. And there's a whole lot that we just don't. We just fly by the seat of our pants and that's it. And
Yeah.
so that's where we can get caught with these sneaky little banana peels along the way that we slip up on.
Yeah.
So
I'm
it's,
kind of
and I
excited
think,
about this series because I think there are a lot of the gotchas that I don't think that a
yeah,
lot of entrepreneurs anticipate, or they're sort of the dirty little secrets nobody talks about that you kind of need
yeah,
to be aware of. And so, the first one that we're going to cover in this particular episode is a big one. When you're an entrepreneur and you're starting to scale, and we've talked about this before, you
uh-huh,
have to, as an entrepreneur and a leader, you have to understand what you're really good at, and you have to figure
yeah,
out those things that you're not, which means that you often are starting to hire and bring people into your fold
yeah,
that need to buy into your vision and understand your mission for your business, your product, or your service. And that can be
right.
a pretty scary proposition because, a
Yeah,
lot of entrepreneurs, I mean, you and I have gone through this, we don't want to give up control on a lot of things, right? Because
exactly.
we know it'll get done exactly the way that we want it done because we're responsible for it. So
Right.
giving some of those tasks away can be a bit of a stressor for business owners, but it's essential if you're going to scale or grow any kind of business that you create systems and processes that aren't solely dependent on you. Because what happens if you have to go out of town or you get sick, or
Exactly.
the business needs to continue to move forward without you being an impediment to it. So, but the banana peel that I wanted to throw on the table for us to
Hmm.
discuss today is how to avoid making a bad hire when you finally get to that
Yeah.
point.
Ooh,
Because in today's market, we hear about quiet quitting, we hear about
yes,
disengaged workforce, we hear about people that are putting in the time but aren't really putting in their effort. And for
exactly.
someone who's maybe looking to make that first hire, that next hire on a growing enterprise where the margins are razor thin, or
Right.
you don't have a lot of room for error, a bad hire can be disastrous, right?
Yes. It really can be. I mean, I think that this is one of the most challenging things as an entrepreneur. And especially, as entrepreneurs, we do want to have control. We do want to have our hand in everything. And we live our vision. And we've got to get really, really good at communicating that and translating that to other people before we take them on as new hires. And I think that that's a really important piece of it, Steve, is our communication skills to be able to communicate the vision and to see exactly get to know that person. What are
Yeah,
their
definitely.
goals? Like what do they want to do? Because you may have somebody that says yes, yes, yes to everything that you're saying, but
Yeah.
are they really, which I've had tons of times, but are they really, are they really passionate about your vision, or are they there for another reason? And I know that this can be kind of
I.e. the
hard.
paycheck. Just to be
Exactly,
there for the
exactly.
paycheck.
For example,
Yes, yes.
And I think that sometimes we do have to go through some bad hires before we get to the good ones. I mean, that is something that I think does happen. But I think asking, good questions during the interview process and giving it a trial period too, and having certain benchmarks that you have along the way so you can kind of get feedback and see, because it's just like any other relationship. It takes time to build that trust. It
It
really, you have
does.
to build that trust and that ability to know each other. I think that that's really important
It is.
aspect
And,
of it.
I think, like you said, I mean, how you communicate what you're doing, how you're doing
Yeah,
it, what the expectations are, having clear lines of expectations, I think are very important.
yeah.
And I find, especially with a lot of my coaching clients that I work with, that when they find themselves having recognized now that they've made a bad hire, they really,
Right.
it adds so much layer of stress. But then when you go like, well, I'm just curious, okay, what are the things that make this a bad hire? Well, they don't do what I
Exactly.
ask them to do when when they're supposed to do it, or they don't ask questions, they don't communicate, they
Right.
make decisions that are outside of their purview to do. They're not
Exactly.
polite or friendly to our customers or whatever. But all of these things that keep bubbling up are like, well, okay, that could have been discussed. That could have been expected. How was
Right.
the training? What did you do? How did you show them? Telling somebody, I had a conversation recently with a business leader that said, that was really struggling with a particular hire,
Hmm.
in terms of how they were interacting with some of their top level clients. And they just didn't like it. They didn't like how they were treating them. And the
Yeah.
feedback from the client wasn't good. And, it was at that point, it was a total blame game about, this
Hmm.
employee just doesn't know what they're doing. And, we
Yeah.
just need to make this situation go away. And I said, well, what was the expectation on how you treat the client? What did you walk them through? What was the training that was involved? Well,
Right.
that's like common sense. You know how to answer the phone, and you know how to be polite. And
Yeah.
and I had to remind them that, maybe it's not so much that it was a bad hire, but their common sense may not necessarily be another person's common sense. Your approach to
Exactly.
customer service for your practice and what you do, Asha, may be vastly different from what I do for my software company,
Right.
right? And the reality is that, like you said, having those clear lines of expectations and setting that parameter up front
Hmm.
so they understand, hey, this is how we want our customers handled. This is the way we want conversations to evolve.
Exactly.
This is how we document and track what we're doing relative to outstanding issues or problems or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I often, even though we're talking about some, sort of potential slip ups on the hiring process, they had nobody to blame but themselves relative to this
Exactly.
situation because they didn't prep this person. And maybe
Yep.
it is that this person doesn't have the right personality type, isn't the right kind
Right.
of person. But maybe before you hired them, you want to make sure that they're good in front of a customer, or they're good
Yep.
communicators. They're good with body language. They're good with their approach. And somehow, some way, as entrepreneurs, you got to get a little bit beyond that interview process. Like you said, the trial period's ideal, but you got to get
Right.
beyond the interview process
Of
because everybody's on their best behavior then, right? We don't want to show
course.
any of our hickeys, from an
No, of
organization
course.
perspective.
It's true.
And as an employee, I want to tell you that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's why you want to hire me. So it is a
Exactly.
really weird, nuanced dance, and it's hard to
It
figure
is.
out what you're actually hiring.
This is where I think too, Stephen, I think that that's excellent, excellent advice. I think the biggest thing is as the entrepreneur, we need to make sure that we are very clear and that we are communicating very clearly and that we don't just make assumptions. Don't make assumptions that people are going to know what you expect or what you think or what is correct. Because, like you said, what's common sense to you, I'm telling you, some people don't have the same
Absolutely.
level of common
Yep.
sense, and it's just the way it is, and they may be perfectly capable people, but this person over here needs to be told literally A to Z everything a couple of times before they get it, and then you've got another person that just, gets it
Yeah.
intuitively. They just know. They're just like, "Oh, okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense." But don't make assumptions and be sure that as an entrepreneur, this is why I think it's so important that we work on ourselves as we go along. This is so important that we've got to get our own stuff in order before we start taking on other people as well. It'll help
Absolutely.
you along the way.
It
Yeah.
will for sure. And I do think, like, some of the red flags. I'm curious about what yours are, but a few of mine are in an interview process. What questions they
Mhm.
came prepared to ask, because I think an
Yes.
interview is a two-way process. I tell people this all the time that I coach through career transition, that you should come prepared with the equal number of questions that they're probably going to toss out at you.
Right.
And the reason for that is you want to know that you're a good fit for that organization and that they're a good fit for
Exactly.
you, right? So at the end of the day, you want to try and figure out how prepared they are, how much time and effort they've put in getting to
Yeah.
know you as a individual or the business leader or your company.
Right.
Like you said, little trial opportunities we do for our software company. We put out a couple of key challenges that really give us an idea of how much energy and effort a person will put towards learning our
Right.
product or understanding our
Yeah.
product. And it's a huge, huge red flag if, you can tell they do the bare minimum. Because if they do the
Exactly.
bare minimum trying to get the job, imagine what they'll do when they get the job.
When they get the
And
job.
and that
Exactly.
becomes a harder process, process to get rid of them at that point. What
Yeah.
are some of the things that you kind of outline in your process to avoid making a bad hire?
I mean, I think definitely during the interview process, I usually have 2 interviews with them, and the first one will be about just really getting to know one another, and I really do listen to what questions that they have prepared, because I know off the bat, if somebody is just there for the money, their first 2, 3 questions are only gonna be about, "How much time do I get off?" What's the pay? You know what I mean? Like
What are my
just like
benefits?
really
Yeah.
exactly, what are the benefits? And I get it, but most of the people, the best hires that I've had are the ones that actually we get to know each other, we get to know the business, we get to know exactly how we work and everything. And then those things get addressed towards the end
Yeah.
naturally. You know what I mean? And those are some of the best hires that I've had because of that. So it I really pay attention to how they come to the interview and what their concerns are, what their questions are, because that to me tells so much about where their mindset is.
Yeah. Well, and once I think, you look at, a couple of other things, how they're dressed, how prepared they
Yep,
were, were they,
absolutely.
I, I always give, special, I'm letting the secrets out. So anybody that's applying, this is going to help you, in good standing with me. But I have learned, and I've shared this philosophy with you in the past. I think
Hmm.
probably on an episode or two. But to be early is to be on time. To be on
Yeah,
time is to be late, and to be late is to be dead. Right? That's a philosophy I
exactly.
learned as a child, and
Exactly.
it has served me so well as an entrepreneur and a business owner.
Yeah.
But especially for those people that are trying to get a job with you, people that come in, 3 minutes before they were supposed to be there. It doesn't look favorable for them. That's one aspect, how punctual they'll be. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying you got to show up 3 hours early for an interview, but
Exactly.
certainly a good 10 or 15 minutes beforehand, get the lay of
Yep.
the land, get yourself centered and comfortable and
Exactly.
prepared. If I'm interviewing for a company, which I haven't done in a very, very long time, but I like to get there and just kind of get the lay of the land and, kind of
Exactly.
maybe chat up the receptionist or the person at the front desk and say,
Yeah.
ask them some questions. Why do they like the business? What excites them about coming to
Yeah.
work? What do they like most about their job? Those things that give you some sense of culture. And then you can reference those in the interview process, right? You're like,
Yep.
hey, I was talking to, Chris out there at the front desk and, understand he's been with the organization for a long time and, really enjoys the being that interaction between the customer and the company. And I really like that. I like that,
Right.
that enthusiasm for the role. And that just shows the person that you're interviewing with that, hey, you've got, you're paying attention, you're speaking up and you're
Exactly.
looking for things to, kind of differentiate. But how people are dressed, I think is very important, especially,
Hmm.
we're in Austin, and where you are, I don't know what the appropriate dress code is for interviews, but here,
Hmm.
you're lucky if people don't wear flip-flops to an interview.
Right.
Although I'm wearing
Yes.
flip-flops today, but hey, I'm the boss, I can do that. But
I know that's different. Yeah.
but dress, are you
Yeah.
prepared? Does it look like you showered? Does it look like you got a good night's rest? I mean, these are all
Exactly.
indicators to me at least that, if you don't show up and look like you're prepared and ready,
Hmm.
you're probably not going to be prepared and ready when we actually extend the job. And now I'm counting on you to show up at a particular time and be
Exactly.
ready. What about
No,
you?
it's
Any
true.
other red flags?
You know what, Steve? That is a big thing. I mean, listening to what people talk about tells you so much. Just like what you were saying, like their physical appearance, how they show up, tells you so much about how much they care.
Yep.
Really care about themselves, care about how they present themselves to the world, how they're going to represent your company, how they're going to show up there. All those kinds of things. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing with what people talk about. If
Yep.
people come in complaining, I've had people. I just remember this one guy that just came to my mind. Just was really tried to start a conversation, which was fine. I appreciated that, but it was just all negative and just complaining about this and that and what traffic, this and that. And I'm just sitting here thinking, okay,
Yep.
I get it. Your
Preview
mindset
of
is
coming
negative.
attractions.
Exactly, exactly. So it's like, okay, this is not going to be a good fit. I can already tell, but let me see on this.
Yeah.
But I mean, so that's where those are the things that I really pay attention to because those are big red flags, and those may be things that as definitely as an early entrepreneur you may not even realize make a big deal in the long run. Like someone showing up in flip-flops or something like that, you may not even think about it, especially, I mean, if you're in Austin or wherever you are, you're at the
Yeah.
beach or whatever, and people show up you may not even realize that, wait a second, this person, you have to think about that person as they are going to be representing an extension of your company.
That's right. That's
Okay?
right.
And that's the way you need to look at them. That's the way you need to listen to them, because you can imagine if somebody is super negative and they're answering your phones.
It's not going to go well.
That's not going to go well, you know?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of tips in there that our audience can take from this. You know, the one thing is that, you know, you're going to make some slip ups. They're going to happen, right? You know, some bad
Absolutely.
hires are inevitable. In our next episode, we're actually going to talk about how to handle that once you realize you've made that bad hire. Okay,
Yeah.
how do you have that conversation that it's over? And, you know,
Yeah.
Asha, I love what you do, but unfortunately today is going to be your last day. How do you have that conversation?
Right.
But you know, as we kick off, you know, this new series, we're going to have a number of things that we're going to talk about for entrepreneurs and business leaders to avoid several slip ups. This bad hire is like kind of a two-parter. But it's a good opportunity for us to actually really look at the first side, how to avoid, do the best you can to avoid and
Right.
anticipate not making a bad hire. But once you have and you've got somebody that you have to remove, we'll give some tips on the next episode on how you deal with those situations, because talk about the most uncomfortable
Yes.
situation you will deal with as a business owner, bar none, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Well, so this has been really enlightening. I love this episode. So Asha, tell everybody how they can get engaged and involved with us, and then maybe even throw out some burning questions they have as
Mhm.
business leaders that they would
Yeah.
like us to look at and maybe talk about as to potential banana peel slip ups that could, you know, could be worth addressing here. Cause you know,
Exactly.
you know,
There's that banana. Or banana peel, I should say.
yeah,
You ate
yeah.
the banana, I think, Steve. I don't know. Anyway.
I was going to try and video myself hitting a banana peel, but then I didn't want to break a hip.
Oh, God.
So there's a limit to what I'll do for this show. I'm
No,
sorry.
exactly, exactly. So people can reach out to us. They can go to our website, conversationwithashaandsteve.com, or definitely drop a comment wherever you're catching this. If you're catching us on the podcast, head over to our social media, Facebook or Instagram, or even YouTube channel, and just drop a comment.
Yeah.
Send us a message there. And yeah, let us know. Let us know what your questions are, what your thoughts are. Maybe share some of your slip ups that you've had. We'd love to hear from you, and you can reach out to us there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, fantastic. We'll be back again with another episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve, part 2 on this particular topic, bad hires. But we appreciate you guys tuning in and paying attention to what we have to say. And we'd love to hear from you, as Asha said. So be sure to check out all of the ways that you can get interacting with us. Dr. Asha and I definitely appreciate you listening if you're, you know, on the podcast platforms or you're finding us on Facebook or YouTube. So we're just grateful to, you know, to have you involved and engaged in this conversation. So we'll be back again with another new episode very soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Conversations with Asha and Steve. We love to hear feedback and questions from our listeners. Please feel free to visit our Facebook page for more tips and information. You can also email us directly at info@ripplecentral.com for more information.